Now, to provide insights into these developments at the spring meetings and shed light on the ongoing discussions, the challenges posed by global trade tensions, and the opportunities that lie ahead for emerging economies, here's Arise correspondent Nkechi Nana and Morning Show co-anchor Oseni Rufai.
All right, we are still here. I am Nkechi Nana at the IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C., and I'm here with Rufai Oseni, and we're just looking about the fallout of trade tensions and how it's affecting the world, but in particular emerging markets, and even drilling down to Nigeria. The IMF just released its April 2025 World Economic Outlook, and the projection for Nigeria when it comes to consumer prices, we remember in 2024 it was 33.2%, right? 2025 it says projection 26%. However, 2026 projection is looking at 37%. Rufai, how is Nigeria going to manage? And also, I wanted to ask, a country like Mexico, right? Its president is saying, look, these projections are a bit too pessimistic, a bit too negative. What do you say to that?
When I saw the projections of 37% 2026 for Nigeria, I shuddered. Because when you look at it, we just rebased. And we thought the rebasing was going to stem this tide. When we rebased, we went on to 23%. Today, a month after the rebasing, we are 24%. I was just having a conversation, off the records, with the CBN governor and all of that. He's been trying his best, in all fairness, because when you look at the books, the orthodox economics books, when you have inflation, what do? You raise rates to be able to stem the tide. We might not get up to 37%, we might get up to 37%, but it's a strong indication that the drivers of that inflationary pressure are still there, and we've not been able to stem the tide of those things.
And I think also the IMF is saying we can actually rebound.
Yes.
We can actually stem the tide, but they are saying that this will be done on the condition that countries focus on themselves and countries focus on trade de-escalation. Countries focus on more clarified or more clarity when it comes to regulatory policies. And these are the only conditions that we can look at and say, okay, we're getting somewhere. Now, for example, in Nigeria, we're talking a lot about our tax reform bills. We've been talking a lot about streamlining these taxes, making sure that the enforcement of these taxes are not uneven and they are balanced as well. So these are some of the things that countries need to focus on in order to rebound from these trade tensions. And also, I think the World Bank president, Ajay Banga, focusing on job creation. He says, look, when you are trying to increase output in your country, when you are trying to increase economic growth, you have to have this job creation. You have to make an investable or make opportunities for more investable sectors to have that job creation, because as we know, 1 billion youths expected to emerge in the next decade, and only 422 million jobs available. That is an almost 800 million job gap that we're seeing. So I don't think it's all gloom, Rufai. If countries and regions focus on enforcing or empowering and strengthening their trade alliances, we might see a rebound.
Nkechi, I beg to differ. I think it's very gloomy, and I'll tell you why. You see, how do you strengthen growth? How do you bring about productivity in a climate where you have challenges with one man's decision and the role America play? Nobody saw this tariff wahala coming, and you can see the effect. You can see what it has done to economies. You cannot divorce the fact that our economy is still tied to the economy of the West one way or the other. Even you are talking about jobs, to create the jobs and all of that. Where will the jobs come from? They will come from something called FDI, foreign direct investments. Where will the FDI come from? The bulk of the capital ascendancy comes from the West. Local capital, can you summon up about 10, 15 billion to open up the next 15, 20 factories? It is still going to come from the West. And when they are seeing alternatives, then it becomes problematic. And that's why I've always had challenges with the fact that, yes, we can get a lot of the FPIs in, but that's quick money, it can go out anytime. Why I also feel there's a gloomy case. Take, for instance, inflation. The reason inflation keeps going up is that we've not settled what is really causing the inflation. We have thrown everything at it. The CBN keeps raising rates. But at the same time, you can see it's still going up because productive capacity of food is a problem. Look at the tax reforms that you're talking about. Finally, after a couple of months, if we can pass this tax reform bill, when we pass it, the money that comes in, how do we spend it? Where is the accountability? Is it not corruption that takes it all? Is it today we've had, you see, Nkechi, like I always say, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. We can talk about strategy, we can talk about fiscal policy, we can talk about all of that. But as long as you have an innate culture of not doing things right, then it will strategy for breakfast. So even when the tax reform comes in, the money we'll realize from it. How much is that going to help the economy? This tariff we're talking about is costing the manufacturers 2 trillion. Remove 2 trillion from our national budgets. It's a sizable amount of money. So for me, I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but I see a very gloomy outlook.
I think you agree with the World Economic Outlook that the IMF just released, and they in fact said that they pared back some of the projections based on those April 2nd trade tariffs from the United States. And as the spring meetings continue here in Washington, we will get a chance to speak to the Nigerian delegation led by our Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edu, and also the Central Bank Governor, Layemi Cardoso, to help us understand what we are gaining here in Washington. Why is the Nigerian delegation here, and what we stand to get out of these meetings? We'll continue to bring you updates. I'm Nkechi Nana.
I'm Rufai Hosseini. Thank you so much.